Hello, and we're back to Ascension Forecast Monday. Hello, everybody. It's actually unusual to be light at this time of night when we're going live. So it's actually, yeah, in the Northern Hemisphere, at least it's getting
Hello,
light.
and we're back to Ascension Forecast Monday. Hello.
Oh, that was me?
That was me.
Oh, that's okay. It's usually me, so that's quite cool. So grab yourselves a cup of tea and come and join us and think about your future and what you want to achieve in life. And just use the energies that we're bringing today, and maybe even invite your soul to come and have this conversation with us. And just use this time to journal and connect with the energies we're going to be talking about so that you can start thinking about how you can use these energies for your life and what you want to do next. So we'll actually get started in a few minutes, give everybody time to connect with us. And for me to check that everything's connected on this side, because everything seems to disappear. There we are. Comments are up. So it's Beltane. So Beltane blessings, ladies.
Yes, you too.
And at least you're in the Northern Hemisphere, so at least we can be in the same wheel of life, I guess, as opposed to the Southern Hemisphere, which are going into their winter. So how are you ladies been?
Great. Yes, I felt that energetic frequency of like that richness and that kind of like that very earthy green and emerald green. So I even wore green today just to bring the energy in. So really feeling that earthiness come in today in these last couple days.
Excellent. So today is the Ascension Energy Forecast. And as you can see, I've got Crystalline Ascension with me. We've got Alicia and Eva joining me again. So the three of us are here to share our views on the energies and what we've seen shifting over the last month, because it was a month ago since we saw you. So what's been happening for you ladies since I saw you last? What have you been up to?
Oh, I think maybe Mum, you want to speak into that, or lots?
Yeah, I think we've been going on our own journeys really, and trying to we've been with Crystalline Ascension, right? We've been talking with Crystalline Ascension, building with Crystalline Ascension, and really becoming one with her. And she's becoming more and more powerful every time that, we tune into her.
Fabulous. So we obviously still get together and do our sort of 5D soul callings. So we still meet up on that basis, which is what we'll be sharing tonight. But for people watching the show, then they haven't seen you for a while. So I thought that was good for them to see what you guys have been up to. So if everybody's settled and they've got their cup of tea, then we can get started. So today being Beltane is about fertility. It's the light conquering the darkness. It's our inner fire lighting, which is our creativity and stepping more into our soul desires. So it's kind of perfectly timed that what we've been working on over the last month has been to do with the sexual energies and balancing the sexual energies. So I thought that was quite interesting when I realized it was 1st of May that we were getting back together again. I thought, oh, that's perfect divine timing once again. So how have you guys been celebrating your creativity, I guess, is going to be the answer or the question to everybody listening, because we really should now. We've been, over the last 3 weeks of what I've been talking about, is been honoring your creative process, being more obedient to your soul calling, making time for contemplation, to think deeply about what messages you're getting in. So how have you guys been celebrating your creativity? Now, creativity isn't about art or poems or poetry. It's about solving the everyday problems, connecting more with your soul, just expression of your soul. Any of that is all part of your creative energy flowing. So celebrate that today on this Beltane in the Northern Hemisphere, because I think that's a good point in time to say, well done and congratulations to everybody that's just awoken, even if it's just a little bit more of their creativity and hope, because the energy is shifting into a much lighter energy than it has been now for a few months. So is that what you ladies are sensing as well? You said when you saw the green.
Yes, definitely. But it's not only about that earthiness coming out, that is more like that femininity coming out. And I do feel like for the last couple of weeks that I've been moving into what I would call maybe pleasure is my birthright template, really playing into that. And I find myself really desiring to, I've always loved to move into dance, but I've been really incorporating that in everything I do, really more deeply, more differently, more intuitively, and really enjoying myself, expressing myself through the dance before I start even doing anything more, a little bit more creative, just to get those creative juices flowing, as well as some breath work that I like to incorporate with that, and really getting those really in sync together, and then allowing myself to express more my true divine form.
Beautiful. And how about you, Eva?
Yeah, I like that word desire, because that's what came up right away too, is really going in within and really activating that life force energy within me type of thing. My month was all about really regrounding, regenerating my physical body. So I've been going on a really deep research, both within inside my bodies, talking with all the organs within inside of my bodies, and really doing a lot of research of how to be the most healthiest, so that I could be the most creative, so I could live the most longest that I could possibly live. So it's been a really intensive month, personally for me, just by going within and seeing how those resources will fit into my lifestyle, where I can sustain it and grow from it.
Excellent. That's all very in fitting with the energies today, isn't it? With the Beltane fertility and the inner fire lighting up. And it does feel like things are shifting, which is pretty amazing as well, because the other thing with creativity, it doesn't have to be a physical creative thing. It could be that you're creating in dream time. You could be, like you say, creating a better body for yourself, creating nurturing a nicer space for you to create in, using dance. All of these things are part of the preparation of your creative process, isn't it? And I think a lot of people are probably creating in their dream time. They don't even realize the invisible work that they're doing. So, you know, if you guys are having dreams and feel like you're building new worlds, then fantastic. You know, that's another thing to celebrate, because it's our dream time where our soul sometimes is more easy to talk to us, because that's when we pay more attention.
Sorry.
That's okay. Another creative wake up. Yeah. Let's call in as many souls as we can then to join us for this energy, just to uplift us into the next level of our creativity. So today we've got two topics to talk about. We wanted to talk about the work we've been doing with the sexual energy and the embodiment aspect. And also then we thought we'd share a bit more on what we've been doing in terms of tapping into our fifth dimensional work and our soul mission that we do together, because that's something we do as a co-joined effort. It's not something we do individually, even though we've got our individual aspects. There is a part that is done together. So let's start with the first question, which is fertility. So last 2 weeks, actually, it wasn't even the just the last time. There's a couple of times now where we've gone in and we've been talking about our crystalline cathedral and how we've been putting an aspect into it, which is the Emerald Order, that is helping understand how the human body needs to change in order to hold more heaven on earth. Then there's been the aspect for the creative, the gold for the creativity. And then we had the amethyst for the soul and more for the soul work. And then we've suddenly discovered that there was this sexual energy generator, because, you know, like we've said before, we started this journey with the aim of how can we have more abundance? And this is where it's ended up, is in sexual energy, because our personal energy is what creates our creativity. It fuels our creativity. And that then leads our creativity, if it's valued, leads to what we offer the world in exchange for money, which is our abundance. So that's the overall process that we've been working through, which is how now, I guess, we're building this kind of etheric architecture. So for a lot of people listening, etheric architectures might sound a bit vague, but we'll go into that a bit later. So let's focus on the sexual energies and how that's been showing up. So it started off with Eva talking about the Black Madonna and a conversation that we ended up having about how certain sexuality is basically still frowned upon. It's, even though we all might think that we're liberated, especially as women, liberated, we're not as liberated as we think. Energetically, we still have the ties. And we were looking at the archetype of the Black Madonna versus the Virgin Mary in terms of the virgin birth versus the kind of the woman that's been disowned to a certain degree for her sensuality. And we were looking at these two and just comparing them to see where along that line perhaps we are in humanity. And the energy that we connected to was a more cleansed, I guess that's what we were doing, was that we were uplifting that sexual energy to a new level so that we could connect to it and then we could bring it into our lives. So yeah, like dancing, we were seeing our projects being almost fueled with the sexual energy as a visualization, just to help boost it even more. Now, I just wanted to, before we go into the full bit of that, I had this really interesting quote. Somebody commented on one of my videos or one of my posts, and he's given me permission to say this. So Charles Sykes, thank you very much for this comment. I asked him about, because what we're working on is this heaven and earth integration, and with the sexual energy that was part of this, like you said, is stepping into that power of our sensuality and enjoying our bodies and our spiritual together is what we're aiming for as ascension, as opposed to just disappearing into a frequency. If we can bring in that higher consciousness into our body and enjoy the sensuality of the human body, that's perfect heaven on earth. And we happened to be having a random chat just about heaven on earth, and he said, I like this, he said, understand that the 3D and 5D natural work together, and it's just that they have been separated for so long. Remembering or learning about each other is like two lovers finding each other again and falling in love again. They are selfless in their love for each other. The more selfless they are, the more deeply they fall in love. That's how I see it. Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful.
So yeah, I was hoping you'd join us on Zoom for the Zoom part, but I don't think he's made it in time. But thank you, Charles. That was beautiful. It's kind of made my day reading that. And that so many of us have got those insights to share, but we're not speaking them because we're not got the confidence to speak this out. So when we talk about what we talk about, it's inspiring everybody to find their inner creative, to talk about their energies and share them with us as well. So thank you, Charles, for that. That was beautiful. So back to our fertility and sexual energies. So what have you been noticing, Alicia?
I think for myself, what I was really going into one day was really going more into that aspects of myself that held that shame, that held that pleasure, and really kind of like uniting them and coming together. So it's like that marriage of the divine masculine, divine feminine. I'm not saying one is either or. I'm just saying that it's all about that divine inner union of embracing both of them, because even though you may have had pleasure, it may have been in the background, or you had shame in the forefront. And it's not that one has to rule the other. It's coming into equality, or coming in to circle together and to be into union together. That's what I noticed for myself, that the more that I was envisioning that, or that's what I was seeing inside of myself, that allowed myself to come into that balance or that divine union and express that forward, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. Oh, Eva, did you have something to share?
I'm here. Okay. Yeah, I can relate with the shame and the guilt. As you guys were talking, that's all I thought was there's a vision of me as a child. And even in the summer, I had to like wear my house coat, like, you know, my house coat way back in the days, like it had to be buttoned from the top to the bottom. And, you know, you always had to sit properly and everything. And when you ladies were talking about it, that's what came to me. And that's always been my thing, is like, you always have to cover up. You can't expose anything, like, you know, and it's not because if you expose a little bit of your skin that you're a bad person, right? So it was like, definitely, it's like, stop putting the shame and blame upon ourselves for somebody else's projection that they put upon us, and really become the person that we are. And just with our essence, we will, you know, we will be that beautiful self, sexual person, but without really any bad connotations attached to it.
But isn't it interesting, you know, with the kind of archetypes that we're presented with, even Eve and the apple, all of these archetypes kind of tell us that our sensuality is wrong. And yet, if that is what fuels our creativity and it fuels our abundance, we can see why we're not necessarily getting the abundance we all hope for. So it's kind of finding a way to deal with that shame and guilt and get back to just feeling in our bodies and enjoying the sensuality. And that's what the whole point of the human form is, isn't it? To have those taste and smell and touch experiences that the physical body allows us to have. So yeah, I think that's beautiful. So I thought Alicia was going to add something to that then.
No, there was some thoughts coming.
I saw. It
and
came
and then I felt I had drifted away, and I was just like, oh no, I have to pull it back. What was I gonna they go in and they go out so quickly, and it's just, I have to hold on to that thought sometimes. But yeah, I was going to say something.
That's what I thought I saw happening as well. So some of the aspects we were looking at with the sexual energy was using it as a generator for our creativity. So you use dance, you said you use dance to kind of get into that zone. So our question is, I guess, to anybody listening, is how do you get into that zone of sensuality before you get into the zone of creativity? Like, how do you become embodied? How do you bring yourself right into your body? So dancing is for me as well, as the way that I use movement and dance then to bring myself back in. But I've also noticed now that we've got that generator concept and we've experienced it, like anything that we've built, we get to experience it. It's much easier to connect to that energy now that we've built that feeling, and we just have to go back into that energetic point and then just use it to almost, I always imagine it like a big bubble around me now. When I want to do any creative work, I expand it out, create this beautiful bubble around me of this sort of golden plasma kind of energy, of sexual energy, of pleasure, of all the nice things I've enjoyed in life. And then I use that to feed my creativity and to work with it. And it's kind of like, you know, those outhouses that you see that are like circles, glass circles and bubbles. I don't know if you've seen them. They were very popular, that they're like garden rooms, but they're like little circles, like onions, I guess, but all see-through. It kind of feels like that I'm sitting in one of those and I'm sort of inside, and it's my own little zone of genius, I guess. And all these energies are kind of pulsing like electrical pulses up and down the sides of the sections of the glass around me. And it just feels quite a buzz, really, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that sacred space, of creating that sacred space of however you desire it to be, to get into that kind of higher state of consciousness, into that creativity state. But I do notice that myself too. I've always been, I think, more into that, creating that energetic space, but now even more so, more deeper, just little things are added in, or some new things are added in. But I feel that even if I'm sitting down, I do feel like the breath work will work for me, versus like dancing, obviously standing. But for breath work, I can really get into my body very quickly, even just through some little bit of holotropic breathing or some really deep breathing, and just really getting into that space and feeling that energy come into my body.
And have you noticed a change in your creativity? Because, you know, you mentioned earlier that you've been spending time with the business and using that energy now for your business. Have you found that the more you're connecting to sensuality, that the easier it is to create the business?
Yeah. Mom, do you want to speak into that maybe, or?
No, you can go.
Okay. All right, then. So I was just going to say that, yes, I do feel that it's become more open, because I felt that before that I was personally putting myself forward, but I'm just allowing that creative energy to flow through me, versus me trying to think or trying to connect that creativity. It's already connected if I just allow it to flow through, step out of the way, and just allow it to express itself the way it wants to express. So I'm just using myself as a vessel for the creativity to flow through, rather than myself. I'm just trying to think of the best way to describe that, but there is a difference of feeling.
No, definitely. I think the more work we've been doing, the more we've been embodying the fifth dimensional energies down into the human body, the more I feel present doing it, and the more present I feel, the more sensual it feels. It's kind of a weird combination that you wouldn't expect it. So it's not even that you have to consciously make a sensual experience for your body. It's just that sudden presence of noticing your skin and noticing the reactions of maybe the wind or just the air around you. It becomes a much more deeper, grounded experience, I think. Yeah,
where you can actually feel your body, allow yourself to enjoy that human experience, but at the same time, simultaneously allow that creativity to flow through you. So it's a very combination of both of them coming together. It's just a different feeling that I haven't really, or maybe if it's the remembrance of an experience, but
because that creative energy as well is not just, because a lot of us can be creative logically, and this is beyond that. It's this almost the soul downloads of love and unity. It's kind of muddled in with other feelings as well. So it's not just a very logical list or a to-do list, like I must do this today, or this is the creative process I'm going to do today. It's a much more organic kind of sensation of inspiration, or maybe we should be calling it a little bit more than just creativity. Creativity is perhaps the combination of weaving all this together, but it's that embodiment and this inspiration flow, that connection and that feeling that just creates the sensuality in itself, I think. And that's like Eva mentioned, is the permission to do that without feeling guilt. because unfortunately that feeling does get alongside the sexual feeling, which, you know, we only were allowed to have that feeling during sex because then it was behind closed doors. And now we're asking ourselves to step into that feeling every single day. And it's almost like you're wondering if somebody can see that you're in that state, and therefore you should be ashamed about being in that state, even though it's not sexual, it's just that sensual connection. There's a very fine line between the two. Well, it's not a fine line between the two, but it's a fine line between the definition of the two in society and the way society has explained it to us. How about you, Eva? Do you have?
Yeah, for me, it was way back when we were traveling a lot. It's just the touching of the sand to the water that gave me that inner creative buzz, right? That bliss and everything. And that's where I was able to create, just with the ocean under my feet and the sand. But since we haven't been traveling as much, I've been going more into the deep, taking the deep breaths and going into my womb, my creative center, and seeing what it wants to create. And really, like at times, how can I give it birth, right? Through the plasma, through the breathing it out and allowing the creative flow. Like Alicia said, just let it go, and just let that creative juices flow outside of us and into the to the manifestation realm.
Yeah, it's interesting you said about water. We were talking about that the other day, and how just having your feet in the sea. I used to do a lot of my thinking just standing with my feet in the sea. I don't, here in the UK, the water's too cold for me to go in any more than my feet. But even abroad, I remember just loving standing at the sea, having the water, the waves kind of gently tickling your toes, and looking up the stars at night, even at nighttime, and just feeling this immenseness of the universe and the access that we had. So yeah, that sounds beautiful.
I think you could do that in the shower. I was going to say, sorry, I was going to say
Yeah.
we could do that in the shower, because I think the shower is where I get my most downloads, where I have the whiteboard outside of my shower, because that's where I get it. And I said, like, oh, lately I've been feeling that I need whiteboards all over my house, like just to keep writing as you're walking around, like some things, a lot of things are flowing in. So anyways, I was just going to say, just have a shower, bath, and just have that same experience, allow the water.
And the thing is as well, like you said, they kind of float in like clouds, and then they kind of, they're so tantalizing. You're kind of looking at them like a child look at awe at something, and then you forget to listen to it, and then it's gone. It's like, no, come back. It's just that kind of floating in and floating out of these amazing ideas. But again, that kind of fits in with what we've been saying. If you want to hear these or get these insights, then we have to work at it to be able to make that connection for this to actually happen, which is what we've actually been doing. So, and I think that kind of leads into the next section, actually, which is how do we get our high dimensional callings? How do we recognize them and hear them? And this cloud is very similar. And over the last few weeks, we were talking about connecting to your own creative process. But if you guys want to listen to the whispers of your soul, then you have to show up and you have to listen. That's the first rule, isn't it? And then you have to practice daily. You have to keep connecting. You might not get it the first time. You might not hear it. You might not understand it. But with practice, you learn the language. And the more you do it, obviously, the more experiences you'll get. And it doesn't have to be an intangible process. It can actually be structured. You know, like we use cards. If you want to use cards, oracle cards, you can make quite a structured process of your own connection to your soul and what your soul wishes you to know. So there's lots of different ways into it. Just because maybe you've tried and you haven't succeeded so far, don't stop. It's changing. Like the last month, the sensing energies has changed so much, the way we can feel energies, that the more you connect to it, the more you'll learn the new format. But the whole point of connecting to your soul is that your soul often has some really great ideas for your life that you might not have thought about. And it's that gives you that drive to take your desires out of playing small and be a little bit bigger about what you want in life. It's the soul that makes you do that. The ego will make you play small, the soul will make you play big. But beyond that sort of soul, like 3D human consciousness, soul purpose, soul vision, then there is often a 5D version on top of that, which is what I wanted to talk about now, which is almost like a galactic or universal energetic preparation of the earth. Again, building the templates of heaven and earth, bringing them together so that it can support the ascension process on the planet right now. And that's what we do as our conjoined soul vision. That's what the three of us do. So we've noticed something odd over the last couple of weeks. Like if we talked about what we were doing last summer, it was quite complex. It was a little bit all over the place. We couldn't quite work out some of the pieces. We had notebooks all over the place with, it said this, but we don't understand it. And it's been quite quiet recently, hasn't it? That's the first thing we all said was like, what have you had? It's like, actually, it's been quite quiet. So how have you guys been processing that? What have you been doing with that?
I'm just trying to tune into it to kind of share how that feels on a different level. I just feel that it's almost as if you're becoming one with the downloads now versus receiving them, if that makes sense. You're almost like living those downloads. You're living that in that very moment. So it feels as if, I don't know how to explain it in words. You're automatically receiving it, or you're actually experiencing or living it. So everything is falling into place more easier, where it just feels more natural, or you just, you'll know. For me, I feel, or I know when it's something that I have to go deeper into. It's almost like as I could do a checklist, you know, that I don't know, but it's all together at once. It's really hard to explain.
It is, because we're not used to this. It's kind of like
No.
easy is one word I'd say. It's definitely easy
Yes.
and flowing. But how about you, Eva?
I think for me, it was trusting that, you know, I used to hold all my images and my thoughts within inside of me, and with our group, the trinewave, I was able to express it and really show it. And now I feel like the visions are coming out more clearly, more easily. And I'm just going to say it because it's relevant. Somehow it just falls relevant into what we are doing, and it's supportive. So to me, that's where I feel like I've really grown in the last couple of months, is just really trusting, stepping out of that ego, like letting that one go and just letting those visions and the words come to me. To me, I feel I'm more like conscious, like when you're in the shower, that's where our subconscious is coming down through you. I feel like sometimes I have to sit in order to receive. Right, and create, whether it's the oracle card or our trinewave, or really get a pen and see, okay, talk to me, and then create the downloads for it. So, but it is coming easier and more flowing.
Yeah, no, it seems quieter, but it's still busy, but it's less stress. It's like we've given up the resistance to it. And now that it's happy that communication is flowing a lot easier, it just seems to come in a much easier way. And don't get me wrong, we've done a lot of work over the last 6 months, 8 months, that we've downloaded so much and processed it into, not just like when we talk about building this etheric cathedral, it's not just about the building of it. It's when we do this kind of work, it's almost like we're creating an experience, an emotional or an energetic experience that we all go through when we do this. So whether we believe that an etheric cathedral has actually been built or not, we now have a different sensation than we had before. When we started it, we thought maybe we knew what sexual energy felt like. Then after we finished building this architecture using the light codes and templates that we got, what came out at the end was something more powerful than any of us had felt before. And we were like sitting there kind of feeling it and sensing it and being silent with it. But there is definitely a shift in how it feels. And that then we apply to our lives and our work. So when we talk about this kind of 5D soul vision, even if you think it's just in dream time, or if it's just sounds a little bit crazy the way it's showing up, just allow for the fact that it's changing who you are, and it's like activating parts of you to remember certain sensations. And the process you're going through doesn't necessarily indicate the depth of what you're going to experience out of it. Just because it's simple or difficult doesn't make it more bigger or smaller on the outside of it, I guess. And it's that, when we get the messages, it almost felt like we had to do that in order for us to now focus more on ourselves. Because whenever we asked about our own abundance or our own work, it would give us this etheric template type work to do. And it would talk us through that process, which, the first time anybody, I guess, because more and more people are going to be having this experience, the first time they get these downloads is going to be a little bit strange for them, I guess. What did it feel like the first time you had these slightly more galactic downloads from the soul, when you shifted from that everyday awareness up to this other level?
I'm just trying to think.
I know I resisted. I was like, I didn't understand it. I misinterpreted it. I looked at it from the wrong angle. I completely did not get it at all because it didn't make sense.
Okay.
And it's through our experience of sharing, the three of us sharing, that suddenly now it's making sense. And now it feels so easy.
Yeah,
it still comes in.
Yeah, I can put a label, like, some people go, oh, well, I talked to a Syrian, I talked to Lyran, and to me, that wasn't coming through. So like I had that doubt inside of me, like, oh, well, that they're not being that specific of who they are or from what planet they are. They're just giving me downloads. So I think I had to step out of that, like, and just free myself and surrender to the messages versus the titles of
Yeah,
who they are. Yeah.
I guess that doesn't help, does it? When, like, if you were a healer or a light worker stepping into this work, then being told it's the Sirian or the Acturian might actually give you some context for it. But we didn't get that, did we? We just got these random messages and didn't know how they all fitted together. But equally, what we have learned through that process has probably been too complex to put into a simple message that a Sirian could hand over. It felt much more vaster again, and a lot bigger and vaster of what we were picking up and how it's worked together. But doubt, I think, is a good word for how it starts. You start doubting, it's weird, it's a bit tense. It's that kind of it bothers you, doesn't it? It kind of keeps in your head and keeps at you until you work it out. And it can leave you a little bit tired and exhausted or awake all night, because it's like having a puzzle you can't solve. And that kind of was where we were a couple of months ago, that it was more of that. It was like once the three of us got together, it was like you threw all the puzzle pieces at us and we were just standing there amongst this big jumble of stuff and we didn't understand any of it. And the more we've worked with it now, it's like it's much easier to see how it all fits together, because we've learned the language of our soul's mission that we've been working on. But it's not always going to be that easy on your own, which is why we've always said, find a community where you can have this conversation. If you're getting weird downloads or strange insights and you can't work it out, or something's bothering you, it keeps coming up, then talk to somebody and see if what they can share, because they may have already been through that process and have some understanding and can share. And it could be just like that. Suddenly it all falls into place and makes sense.
Or the other piece of the puzzle, they may have the other pieces of the puzzle you were missing, you know what I mean? So beginning of the sentence, end of the sentence type thing, right? Yeah. And
that kind of wraps us up nicely, because what I was going to say is that one of the things we have discovered about the cathedral is that we're calling it the Crystalline Cathedral, but we're not the only ones building it. We've noticed that there are other parts to it being built by other people. We don't know who you are, but you're all out there somewhere building a part of this cathedral. So we're guessing that more people must be getting these kind of downloads than realize it. So if you're one of those people listening today, then, we asked your soul to come in and join you. So we ask your soul to be kind and gentle, and please let them know in a format they can understand what that part of that role is. And it doesn't have to be, like a structure of a cathedral. Just think of it as an energetic aspect, and see how it, it could be a frequency that you're bringing to Earth. That's what the unique frequencies are all about. So it's about sensing into what frequency does it your soul want you to put into. And imagine it maybe even as like a little building container as part of the cathedral, that you put that frequency in. And that's all it is sometimes. It's just about putting that frequency there, and then it works together and builds this kind of energetics. And then hopefully it'll stop bothering you. We've got a comment come through asking, just getting here, but I'm curious if anyone has experienced challenges with anyone trying to change you with religious beliefs. But then we probably wouldn't listen. they may be trying, but perhaps we haven't even noticed.
I think because we've come so far, like we've done so much inner work with that, and we've touched the topic of religion within inside of ourselves, that it doesn't affect us anymore, like in that sense.
Yeah, thinking back, the religious stuff for me, I've never been religious, but years and years and years ago, we did the kind of breaking away from any of the religious type beliefs or constructs that might have been indoctrinated into my upbringing as through Sunday school or something like that. So I guess we already did some of that work, but it hasn't actually shown up in our work recently. If it does show up, it's usually just the archetypes of the beings that we need to understand, because a lot of these archetypes, regardless which religion they come from, have a meaning and have a purpose. And we just look at it, I suppose, as a detached kind of archaeologist, maybe spiritual archaeologist. We kind of pull the pieces up and we sit there and go, okay, so this is, I don't know, like the Black Madonna or the Virgin Mary. Let's just look at them with fresh eyes, without the context. Let's see what they have to show us, what lessons they want us to know. Let's take what suits us, that resonates with us, and then leave behind what's not needed anymore. So I guess that would be how we deal with it, if that helps. But if it's somebody as opposed to just a generic thing, then you have to question why that person feels the need to do that. And that's more of a boundaries thing then, isn't it? That's personal boundaries. So I don't know if that helps. So we were just coming to an end there. It's a shame you came just at the end, but we'll be back. Well, I'll be back next week. I've got my special guests with me this time with Alicia and Eva. So thank you, ladies, for joining us and for your insights. They're always precious. So that's always amazing to hear. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation today, which we talked about the sexuality and sexual energy and how tapping into that feels and how you can use it for your creativity. And we also just spoke about our higher dimensional 5D soul calling and how we find that process and how we sort of just shared a little bit about the steps we go through when we're processing that to see if that helps anybody who also is building the crystalline cathedral or parts of it can then connect to their parts too. So that's it for this week. So don't forget you can follow Crystalline Ascension on their YouTube page, and we're all on Facebook and we're on YouTube and Instagram, so that we're in plenty of places you can find us. And I'll be back next week to talk more about the Ascension energy forecast or what energies come up in the next week. But so far, May is looking, like you say, it's about that stepping into your light. The storybooks we've been told have been closed. The old chapters are closed. We're stepping more into the light. And even though it's like we can say, oh yes, closing the old doors to the past trauma was so hard, I think stepping into your light's going to be just as hard because you've never done this before. You're going to be a little bit scared to be so bright, like the sexual energy, walking down the street, shining so brightly in a radiant, sexual, sensual kind of way. It's going to feel a little bit odd and maybe make you feel a little bit more unique than you already feel, which is going to take time to step into that new feeling. So I think that's it for tonight. I'll say goodbye to everybody. I'm just getting my buttons ready because it always seems to end. So thank you for the questions. And yes, listen back and see if any of that resonates. But also, if you've got any more questions, put them underneath the video and we can come back and answer the questions later. So normally on a Monday, we also have the live after, the Zoom meeting afterwards. So we have like a spiritual think tank where we talk more about these issues for 30 minutes afterwards. If you want an invite to join us for that, then send us a message and I can send you a link. So next week it'll be myself, and then are you ladies going to be available for the first Monday of the next month?
Right. Yeah. Perfect. Sounds good.
Okay. So Alicia and Eva will be back in about 4 weeks' time. And meanwhile, we'll continue sharing the Ascension forecast. So I hope your soul heard us today, and I hope it speaks kindly to you and shares with you what it has in planned on the divine level for the next stage of your life.